A Supreme Court hearing starts today into whether Google can be sued for alleged misuse of iPhone data. The claimant says Google illegally misused the data of millions of iPhone users.
Former Which director Richard Lloyd wants to take tech giant Google to court on behalf of millions of people in England and Wales. But first, the Supreme Court needs to decide whether the claim can proceed. Lloyd says Google illegally misused the data of about 4.4 million UK iPhone users. He is supported by campaign group Google You Owe Us. Google says the company secretly tracked and collated data from users' iPhone Safari browsers, known as the Safari workaround. Google denies the allegations. It says claims for compensation need to show proof of damage and that Lloyd's case should not go ahead. Lloyd hopes to win at least £1 billion for alleged breaches of the Data Protection Act. The online hearing is set to run for 2 days.
In a major shake-up of the mobile advertising industry, Apple is updating its mobile operating system with new privacy controls. The iOS update will limit digital advertisers from tracking iPhone users, but experts say it'll hit the mobile advertising market hard.
Apple will begin rolling out an update of its iOS operating system with new privacy controls. The company said Monday the new controls are designed to limit digital advertisers from tracking iPhone users. That move comes off the back of a clash with Facebook over user data collection. Facebook says the change will hurt small businesses and their access to target customers with advertising. Apple has stood firm on its decision, prioritizing its customers' control over whether data collected by them is shared with third parties. Software marketing expert Alan Adamson said the change is a major shake-up in the industry.
Apple is responding to a real consumer desire for privacy, and that desire exists among Apple users, but exists among all people who are using mobile software and mobile apps and mobile phones. So they're the first of many that are going to make this transition to better protecting privacy.
So what will it look like for Apple's pool of more than 1 billion iPhone customers? A new pop-up notification will ask permission for apps to track you across apps and websites. iPhone owners will also have a tracking menu in their iPhone's privacy settings where they can opt out of tracking. Industry experts say the change will hit the $100 billion mobile advertising market hard, with some mobile analysts believing fewer than 1 in 3 are likely to grant permission.
Former US Secretary of State John Kerry is accused of leaking information about a US ally to Iran. Kerry is now facing increasing pressure to step down. He denied the accusation on Monday.
The New York Times reported on April 25th that John Kerry told Iran's foreign minister Israel had attacked Iran's interest in Syria at least 200 times. This came from an alleged leaked tape of a conversation that supposedly took place when Kerry was President Obama's Secretary of State. But Kerry denied the allegations. He tweeted on Monday, "This never happened, either when I was Secretary of State or since." Kerry is facing calls from Republicans to step down from his post. Former U.S. Ambassador to the United States Nikki Haley posted on Twitter, "This is disgusting on many levels. Biden and Kerry have to answer for why Kerry would be tipping off Iran, the #1 sponsor of terror, while stabbing one of our greatest partners, Israel, in the back." Alaskan Senator Dan Sullivan called for Kerry's resignation on the Senate floor Monday.
If this is true, I certainly hope other members of this body, Democrats and Republicans, will join me in calling for the resignation of John Kerry. Enough is enough.
Meanwhile, New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik tweeted, "This is a criminal act and John Kerry must be immediately investigated and prosecuted. President Biden must immediately remove John Kerry from any government or advisory position." According to the Washington Examiner, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo led the calls for Kerry to be investigated. Last Wednesday at a press conference on Capitol Hill, Pompeo slammed Kerry for his inappropriate meetings with Iran.
I'm actually doing this publicly and openly, unlike Secretary Kerry, who had private conversations with the Iranians that was trying to undermine our administration.
Pompeo said the tape proves what he has said for years, that Kerry informed the Iranians of Israeli operations.
Mask policies in the U.S. are easing up. The U.S. National Public Health Agency, CDC, is allowing vaccinated people to go without masks outdoors. NTD's Miguel Moreno brings us the story.
The CDC is relaxing its guidelines, giving Americans more room to breathe easily. Vaccinated people can now have small and medium-sized outdoor gatherings without masks. The CDC says it's safe, but its director didn't define small or medium-sized gatherings.
What I'll get back to is the basic concepts, because if we define a small and medium-sized gathering, we actually also have to define the size of the space that it's in, the ventilation that is occurring, the space between people. And so I think we should get back to the general concepts.
And if one person in the group is vaccine-free, don't worry, no need to mask up. Other than that, masks are still recommended for everyone, vaccinated or not, indoors and at crowded outdoor events. The CDC didn't say how states should enforce this or how law enforcement will know who's vaccinated or not. Michigan, meanwhile, has extended their statewide mask mandate, and they've expanded it to even younger children. Originally 5 and up, now 2 to 4-year-olds will have to mask up in public, including preschools, daycares, and camps. The Michigan governor says the expansion is her response to rising infections among young Michiganders. This will be in effect until at least late May.
Regular air travel between the UK, Europe and the United States may resume this summer. That's according to the CEO of British Airways. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
The chief executive of British Airways says Britain and the United States could soon open a travel corridor. That's because of their high vaccination rates. He also noted he's optimistic for European travel from June onwards.
The data is very encouraging, and you look at the progress on rollouts, I think it does give you room for optimism that Europe will be able to open up.
Airlines are readying their planes, pilots, and crew for travel this summer. They're hoping to bounce back after over a year of pandemic restrictions, though governments have yet to agree on the details of how and when the restart will begin. Doyle says travel between Britain and the US should be restriction-free. Europe's vaccination program lags behind the progress made in Britain and the United States. But Doyle says there's room for optimism that Europe will open up, and that June will mark a tipping point. Doyle also called on Britain to simplify its travel rules, and said more coordination is needed between different countries.
So I think if there were one set of rules for opening up travel, because we're all trying to manage the same risks, that would be a lot better than the fragmented approach that we're seeing today.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said Sunday that all vaccinated Americans should be able to travel to Europe by the summer. Shares in many travel stocks traded higher on Monday, boosted by von der Leyen's comments. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Spain says it will be ready to welcome back tourists in June, including those from the UK. Its tourism minister announced the country will launch a pilot program for a digital vaccine passport starting in May. The so-called green certificates can be used as proof that a person had a COVID-19 jab, received a negative test result, or recovered from the virus. The European Union said UK tourists could use its vaccine passports too. Spain welcomed 18 million Brits in 2019. The UK government has not yet confirmed whether foreign holidays can resume from 17th of May. And in other news, countries are racing to fill their empty beaches and resorts this summer. And it seems there are people willing to travel amid the COVID-19 pandemic and its restrictions.
So it's Monday and I'm ready to go to Rhodos.
What would it take for you to go on holiday and feel safe? Dutch holidaymaker Amy Smulders is travelling to Greece as part of an experiment. run by a tour operator and the Dutch government, to see if safe holidays can be arranged for the Greek tourism industry, which has been badly hit in the last year.
So we're at the airport right now. We did our PCR test for testing for COVID, and I think the result is going to be fine. I think we have to check in right now, and then we're going to Greece.
It's just one way that countries are hoping to lure back tourists this summer to fill their empty beaches and resorts. Smulders was one of 200 or so Dutch tourists that took part in the experiment. The holiday is at a Greek beach resort where guests can enjoy access to the hotel's pool, restaurants and other facilities. The catch is they can't leave. No long walks on the beach, no mingling with other guests closer than 5 foot, and at least 5 days quarantine upon return. It might sound stark, but demand was high. Around 25,000 people signed up in the hope of getting a ticket. The Croatian resort of Porek is expecting a flood of tourists from mid-May as travel restrictions are gradually eased around Europe. And they're making sure they're well prepared.
We've invested a lot in security in our facilities, from increased disinfection of the space to the introduction of plexiglass at the reception and on our tables. We've hired more staff at buffet tables, meaning that guests do not have to take their own food, but the food is served.
That's the news for today, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Stuart Lees.